If that elevator door opened again, I knew I was going back to the man I'd spent 6 months trying to escape. My shoes struck the marble floor so hard the sound followed me through the hotel lobby like a second set of footsteps. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Ryan had been calling my name since I pushed through the revolving doors, and hearing it in his voice made my stomach tighten. Claire! I kept moving. Rainwater dripped from my coat and ran cold beneath my collar. My phone vibrated inside my purse. Again, 14 calls in 20 minutes. I had blocked 3 numbers that week. Ryan kept finding new ones. The lobby of the Blackstone Grand looked almost unreal at 11:47 on a Thursday night. All polished marble, brass fixtures, and warm golden light. The kind of place where a single night stay probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. I hadn't chosen it. I'd seen the lights from the sidewalk and run inside because there was a security desk near the entrance, and because fear makes you believe any crowded place is safer than an empty street. Then I heard Ryan behind me. Claire, stop. I just want to talk. That sentence had followed me for 6 months. I just want to talk. At my apartment. Outside my office. In grocery store parking lots. Tonight, he'd been waiting across the street from the restaurant where I'd met my friend Natalie for dinner. I had seen his gray sedan before I'd even reached my car. So I ran. Ahead of me, an elevator chimed. The doors were closing. Wait! I shouted. A hand appeared between them. The doors slid apart. I didn't even look at who was inside. I rushed through, turned, and hit the close button so many times my fingertip hurt. Please, I whispered. Please close. The doors began moving. Then Ryan appeared across the lobby. His face changed when he saw me. Claire! He sprinted toward us. My lungs forgot how to work. 10 feet. 8. 6. The opening narrowed. Ryan reached forward, but the steel doors met with a quiet click before he reached them. Silence. Beautiful, impossible silence. I closed my eyes and pressed one hand against my chest. My heartbeat felt enormous. Thank God. Nobody answered. That was when I realized I wasn't alone. I opened my eyes and looked at the mirrored wall. 3 men stood behind me, all in dark suits, all completely still. 2 watched me with the careful expressions of men trained to notice everything. The third stood between them, one hand resting casually in the pocket of a charcoal suit that looked custom-made. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair brushed neatly back and a face that seemed almost too calm for what had just happened. Mid-30s, I guessed. Pale gray eyes. No surprise. No irritation. Just attention. The kind that made the enormous elevator suddenly feel very small. I turned around. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. A heavy pounding interrupted me. Ryan. The elevator hadn't started moving. His voice came muffled through the doors. Claire, open the door. Every muscle in my body locked. One of the suited men reached toward the control panel. Don't. The single word came from the man in the center. Quiet. Controlled. The other man immediately lowered his hand. Then those gray eyes settled on me. Not on the doors. Not on Ryan. Me. Do you know the man outside? He asked. I swallowed. Yes. Do you want this door open? Ryan struck the doors again and called my name. I stared at the stranger, wondering why his question felt so different from every demand I'd heard that night. He wasn't telling me what to do. He was waiting for me to decide. My voice came out barely above a whisper. No. Something changed in his expression. Almost nothing, but enough. He reached toward the panel and pressed the button for the 47th floor. The elevator began to rise. Ryan's voice disappeared beneath us. I finally breathed. Then I noticed the other 2 men exchanging a glance. I looked at the glowing number above the doors. 12, 13, 14. I had run into this elevator because I was terrified of the man outside. I hadn't stopped to wonder who might be standing inside. The stranger watched my reflection in the mirrored wall. Claire Bennett, he said quietly. My blood went cold. I had never told him my name. 3 floors, I forgot about Ryan completely. That should tell you something about the man standing behind me. I watched the numbers climb above the elevator doors. 21, 22, 23. My reflection looked pale beneath the warm ceiling lights. Strands of wet hair stuck to my cheeks, while Adrian Moretti stood behind me like he had been expecting this exact moment. What do you know my name? I asked. He did not answer immediately. That silence bothered me more than any quick excuse could have. I asked you a question. His gray eyes met mine in the mirror. And I heard you. Then answer me. One of the other men shifted slightly. Adrian did not. If anything, the corner of his mouth moved like my refusal to be intimidated had surprised him. Your former boyfriend has been saying your name in my lobby for the last several minutes. I almost laughed from relief. Almost. That explains Claire. It does not explain Bennett. The elevator passed the 30th floor. Adrian looked at the man on his right. Daniel. Daniel removed a phone from his jacket and handed it to him. Adrian glanced at the screen before turning it toward me. My employee photographs stare back at me beside my full name and the logo of Hartwell Interiors, the design firm where I had worked for 4 years. My stomach dropped. What is that? Something my security team found 37 seconds after you entered this elevator. Your security team investigates random women who run into elevators? Only when someone follows them into a private hotel. Private. I looked at the control panel. There were no buttons above 47. You own this place. Part of it. Of course he did. Men like him probably considered buildings the way normal people consider coffee mugs. I folded my arms, partly from anger and partly because I was still shaking. So what happens now? That depends. On what? Why Ryan Cole was waiting outside your office yesterday afternoon. My breath stopped. Adrian watched me carefully. How do you know that? Because Ryan Cole is not interesting enough for me to follow. The elevator chimed softly as we passed 40. But the people he has been meeting are. Suddenly the polished walls felt closer. I remembered Ryan outside Hartwell the day before. He had claimed he wanted to return a box of my things. I had refused to see him. Reception had sent him away. At least I thought they had. I do not understand. I know. Adrian said it without cruelty. Somehow that made it worse. Who are you? This time Daniel looked away. The third man stared straight ahead. Adrian held my gaze. Adrian Moretti. The name meant nothing for half a second. Then memory arrived. Newspaper stories. Business rumors whispered by clients. Moretti Properties. Moretti Restaurants. Moretti Charities. And other stories people lowered their voices to tell. Oh, Adrian raised one eyebrow. That is usually followed by a less polite word. I am trying to improve myself. For the first time, he almost smiled. The elevator chimed. 47. The doors opened onto a quiet private hallway overlooking Chicago through walls of glass. The city glittered below us, blurred by rain. I stayed exactly where I was. I'm not going anywhere with you. Adrian stepped out, then stopped. He did not reach for me. He did not order Daniel to move me. He simply turned around. Then stay in the elevator. I blinked. That is it. You asked me not to open one door. I respected that. His expression became serious again. I will respect this one too. The door started closing between us. Relief should have come first. Instead, Adrian spoke one final sentence through the narrowing gap. But before you go back downstairs, Claire, you should know Ryan was not chasing you tonight because he wants you back. I stopped the elevator doors with my hand. What does that mean? Adrian was already several feet down the hallway when he turned back. Behind him, Chicago shimmered through the rain-streaked glass. Thousands of lights suspended in the darkness. It means you should come inside before you decide whether you still want to leave. Every sensible instinct told me to press the lobby button. Instead, I stepped onto the 47th floor. 5 minutes. Take 10. Do not push your luck. Daniel looked down, hiding what might have been a smile. Adrian led me into a penthouse that felt less like a home than a place designed for decisions nobody questioned. Dark wood, gray stone, floor-to-ceiling windows. Everything perfectly arranged. Everything quiet. I stayed near the entrance. Talk. Adrian removed his jacket and placed it over a chair. Where's your work bag? I frowned. What? Claire. You keep saying my name like that is supposed to make me cooperate. Is it working? No. Good. Where's your bag? I hesitated. At the restaurant. His expression changed. You left it there? Natalie has it. I ran before I could grab anything except my purse. Adrian looked at Daniel. No words passed between them, but Daniel immediately stepped away and made a call. I felt irritation rise through the fear. Stop doing that. Doing what? making decisions around me without explaining anything. Adrian studied me for a moment, then nodded toward a chair. Fair. I remained standing. Ryan has been meeting with a former employee of one of my companies. 3 weeks ago, confidential financial records disappeared. 2 days later, Ryan started appearing near Hartwell Interiors. I stared at him. Ryan sells commercial insurance. That is what his business card says. You think he stole something? I think he helped someone move information they were not supposed to have. My mouth went dry. What does that have to do with me? Adrian walked to a table and turned a tablet toward me. A security image showed Ryan entering my office building 6 days earlier. The timestamp read 6:12 in the evening. I remember that night. I had stayed late reviewing plans for a restaurant renovation. Ryan had appeared with coffee and an apology I did not want. I had gone downstairs and told him to leave. He never came upstairs. Adrian tapped the screen. Another image appeared. Ryan stepping out of an elevator on my floor 11 minutes later. No, the word escaped before I could stop it. Our office requires a badge. He had one. I thought about my old access card, the one I had reported missing after Ryan moved out. My chest tightened. Adrian noticed. What? I lost a badge months ago. The room suddenly felt colder. What could he access? My floor. Conference rooms. The materials library. I stopped. My work bag. Ryan had insisted on carrying it downstairs that night. He had held it for maybe 30 seconds while I put on my coat. 30 seconds. Such a small piece of time. Daniel returned and quietly said, "We have the bag." 15 minutes later, a hotel employee delivered it inside a sealed garment cover to protect it from the rain. Adrian did not touch it. He placed it on the table in front of me. Open it yourself. I unzipped the main compartment. Sketchbook. Laptop. Measuring tape. Chargers. Nothing unusual. Then my fingers touched something beneath the inner lining. Something hard. I pulled out a small black storage device I had never seen before. My heartbeat stumbled. That is not mine. Adrian's face remained calm. I know. I looked from the device to him. You wanted this. Yes. Then take it. Adrian did not move. No. I stared at him. Why not? His answer came quietly. Because Ryan put in your bag. That makes the next decision yours. For 6 months, Ryan had treated every choice I made as something he could negotiate, challenge, or ignore. Now, the most powerful man I had ever met stood 10 feet away from something he clearly wanted and refused to take it without my permission. I looked down at the device resting in my palm. What happens if I give this to you? Adrian's gray eyes held mine. Then I tell you why Ryan was so desperate to catch you before you reached that elevator. I placed the black storage device on the table between us. Fine, you have my permission to look at it. Adrian did not reach for it immediately. Are you sure? The question caught me off guard. You wanted my decision. That is my decision. Only then did he nod to Daniel. Daniel carried the device to a small desk near the windows and connected it to an isolated laptop. I folded my arms tightly, watching rain slide down the glass 47 floors above Chicago. My entire evening had become impossible in less than an hour. Dinner with Natalie. Ryan outside. The hotel. The elevator. Now I was standing in Adrian Moretti's penthouse, waiting to learn why my former boyfriend had hidden something in my bag. How long have you known about Ryan? I asked. About 3 weeks. And you never thought to warn me? Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. Until tonight, we did not know you were involved. I am not involved. I believe you. That might be the first comforting thing you have said. I'm not known for being comforting. I noticed. Daniel interrupted us. It is encrypted, but the directory names are visible. He turned the laptop slightly. Adrian walked over, but I stayed where I was. Claire, he said, you should see this. I approached reluctantly. On the screen were folders labeled with dates, project numbers, and company names. Most meant nothing to me. One did. Hartwell Interiors. My employer. Another folder carried the name of the restaurant project I had been managing for the last 2 months. Why is my project there? Adrian looked at Daniel. Daniel opened a list of file names without accessing the contents. Floor plans, vendor schedules, delivery routes, building access records. My pulse quickened. Those are ordinary design documents. Most of them are, Adrian said. That is why nobody would question them. I looked at him. Question what? Information hidden inside ordinary files. I thought about every late night Ryan had complained about my work. Every time he had asked what project I was handling. Every casual question about buildings, contractors, schedules. Things I had answered because they seemed harmless. A cold realization settled over me. He was using me. Adrian said nothing. He did not need to. Tonight, Daniel said carefully, someone attempted to access this device remotely shortly after Miss Bennett left the restaurant. My eyes moved to Adrian. Ryan, probably, he said. Then why chase me? If he could access it remotely, why come after me? Adrian's gaze sharpened. Because the remote attempt failed. I looked at the tiny device. So he needed it back. Before we found it, the room became very quiet. Suddenly, Ryan, waiting outside the restaurant, made terrible sense. His repeated calls, his insistence that we talk, his anger when I ran. He had not been trying to repair our relationship. He had been trying to recover something he had hidden without my knowledge. I want to go to the police. Adrian nodded once. You should. That answer surprised me. You are not going to stop me. Why would I? Because whatever is on that device clearly matters to you. Adrian stepped back from the table, deliberately leaving the device between us. Claire, you seem determined to believe that power means taking whatever you want. Does it not? His expression changed, not angry, just distant. Sometimes power is knowing you could take something and choosing not to. I looked away first. Daniel's phone vibrated. He checked the screen, and the calm disappeared from his face. Adrian. Adrian turned. What? Ryan Cole just left the hotel. Relief moved through me until Daniel continued. But he was not alone. Adrian's eyes hardened. Who was with him? Daniel looked at me before answering. Someone from Hartwell Interiors. Who? The word came out sharper than I intended. Daniel turned the phone toward Adrian, but Adrian did not look at it. He looked at me. Do you recognize anyone at Hartwell who spends time with Ryan? I wanted to say no. Then a face appeared in my mind. Evan Mercer. My voice sounded distant. He manages vendor contracts. Ryan met him at our holiday party last year. Daniel checked his phone. That is him. I sat down because my knees suddenly felt unreliable. Evan had worked 2 offices away from me for 3 years. He brought donuts on Fridays. He remembered birthdays. He complained about parking and drank terrible coffee from the break room, like everyone else. Ordinary. That was what frightened me most. Adrian crossed the room and placed a glass of water on the table beside me. He did not tell me to drink it. He simply left it there. How many people know? I asked. We do not know yet. Is Natalie safe? Adrian immediately looked at Daniel. Check. No. I stood. Do not just check. Call her. Daniel handed me a phone without argument. Natalie answered on the 3rd ring, annoyed and half asleep. Hearing her voice loosened something in my chest. I told her I was safe, asked whether anyone had contacted her, and made her promise to lock her apartment door and call me if anything felt strange. I did not explain the rest. I could barely explain it to myself. When the call ended, Adrian was standing by the windows, Chicago spread beneath him like a map he had memorized. She is fine, I said. Good. You really expected something to happen to her? I prefer knowing over assuming. That sentence seemed to explain him better than anything else had. Daniel left to take another call, and for the first time Adrian and I were alone. The silence changed. Not softer exactly. More human. I noticed a framed photograph on a shelf near the window. Adrian looked younger in it, maybe 20, standing beside a woman with the same gray eyes. She was laughing. He was not, but he looked close. Your mother? I asked. His gaze moved to the photograph. Yes. She looks happy. She was. 2 words. A closed door. I understood enough not to push. Rain whispered against the glass. Why this hotel? I asked instead. Why what? You could probably live anywhere. Why live above a hotel? Adrian looked down at the city. Because hotels have exits. I almost smiled. That is a strange answer. You ran into one tonight. Fair point. He finally looked at me. For the first time, I saw exhaustion beneath the control. Not weakness. Just a man who had spent too many years expecting every room to contain a problem. People are afraid of you, I said. Yes. No pride. No es paligi. Should I be? His eyes held mine. You should always be careful around powerful people, including you, especially me. I did not expect honesty. Somehow it made him less frightening and more complicated. Daniel returned. Evan's phone is off. Ryan's too. Adrian's expression hardened into business again. Have someone remain near Hartwell until morning. I stood immediately. Someone. Security. At my office? At a distance. In my apartment? His silence answered before he did. Already covered. Heat replaced the cold in my chest. You sent people to my home without asking me. I sent them to make sure nobody approached it. That is still making a decision for me. Claire, someone used your workplace and your bag to move information. And that gives you permission to monitor my life. Adrian's jaw tightened. It gives me a reason to keep you safe. Ryan used to say the same thing. The room went completely still. I regretted it immediately, but I did not take it back. Adrian stared at me for several seconds. Then he picked up his phone. Daniel, remove everyone from Miss Bennett's apartment and office. Daniel hesitated. Adrian. Now. He ended the call and faced me. You wanted the choice. It is yours. I should have felt victorious. Instead, the quiet in his voice unsettled me. Just like that. Just like that. He walked to the elevator and pressed a button. The doors opened. You are free to leave whenever you want, Claire. I looked at the waiting elevator, then at the storm beyond the windows. Adrian stepped aside, giving me a clear path. But freedom, he said quietly, does not make the danger disappear. I stepped into the elevator alone. Adrian stayed exactly where he was. No command, no argument, no last-second attempt to change my mind. The doors closed on his face, and for the first time that night, I had exactly what I had demanded. Freedom. It felt terrible. By the time I reached the lobby, Ryan was gone. The marble floor had been polished back into perfection, as if none of it had happened. Outside, the rain had softened to a cold drizzle. I ordered a rideshare and waited beneath the hotel awning, checking over my shoulder every few seconds. No black cars appeared. No suited men followed me. Adrian had kept his word. 25 minutes later, I unlocked my apartment in Lincoln Park and immediately checked every room. Nothing was disturbed. Still, I pushed a chair beneath the front door handle before going to bed. Sleep never came. At 6:30 the next morning, I gave up pretending. I showered, made coffee, and stared at my phone. 3 messages from Natalie. 2 from my boss. None from Ryan. That frightened me more than 20 missed calls would have. By 8:15, I was walking into Hartwell Interiors. The office looked painfully normal. Phones ringing. Printers humming. Someone complaining about Monday deadlines, even though it was Friday. Evan Mercer's office was dark. His chair was empty. Evan called in sick. Our receptionist told me. I stopped walking. Did he say what was wrong? No. Just sent an email around 5 this morning. 5. Less than 6 hours after Daniel had identified him leaving the hotel with Ryan. I went to my desk and tried to work. I lasted 12 minutes. Every familiar sound suddenly felt suspicious. Every coworker conversation seemed to stop when I passed. I hated what Adrian's world had done to mine. Or maybe I hated discovering that his world had already been inside mine before I knew it existed. At 9:14, my phone rang from an unknown number. I nearly ignored it. Hello. Silence. Then Ryan's voice. Claire, we need to talk. My fingers tightened around the phone. No, we do not. You do not understand what happened last night. I understand enough. Did Moretti take the drive? I froze. Not how are you? Not are you safe? The drive. Goodbye, Ryan. Wait. Claire, listen to me. Adrian Moretti is not someone you can trust. I almost laughed. And you are. Silence answered me. You put that thing in my bag. I was trying to protect you. There it was. The sentence I had heard too many times. Stop calling control protection. I ended the call. My hands were shaking, but something inside me had become strangely calm. For once, I had ended the conversation. At noon, I noticed the same dark sedan pass the office twice. My first instinct was to call Adrian. I even opened his contact information, which Daniel had placed in my phone before I left. Then I remember my own words. A beautiful cage is still a cage. I had demanded independence. I needed to prove I could handle it. At 5:30, I left through the main entrance with 2 coworkers and took a cab instead of walking to the train. No one followed. By the time I reached my building, I almost felt foolish. Then the elevator doors opened. Ryan was standing inside. My entire body went still. "Do not," I said before he could speak. He raised both hands. "I just need 5 minutes. You already had 6 months." I stepped backward. Ryan stepped out. "Claire, please. The drive was never supposed to involve you. You put it in my bag because nobody would search you." The words landed harder than any apology could repair. I looked at the man I had once trusted and finally understood something simple. He had never seen me as a person in that moment. I had been a hiding place, a convenient solution. "Stay away from me." I turned toward the lobby doors. "If Moretti has that drive, you are in more trouble than you realize." I stopped. "Then I will decide what to do about it." Ryan called after me, but I kept walking. Outside, evening traffic moved beneath a pale Chicago sky. I pulled out my phone. Adrian's number waited on the screen. My thumb hovered over it. Then I looked across the street and saw the Blackstone Grand reflected in the glass of passing bus. 47 floors. 1 elevator ride. 1 man who had warned me without forcing me to believe him. I put my phone away and raised my hand for a cab. This time, I was not running from Ryan. I knew exactly where I was going. The cab had barely stopped beneath the Blackstone Grand awning when I was already reaching for the door. This time there was no rain, no Ryan behind me, no panic deciding where my feet should go. I crossed the lobby under my own power and walked straight toward the elevators. The same brass doors opened with the same soft chime. Somehow they looked different when I was choosing them. I pressed 47. Nothing happened. Of course. Private floor. I stared at the panel, annoyed at myself for not considering that. "Miss Bennett." I turned. Daniel stood near the security desk. He said you might come back. That irritated me more than it should have. Did he? Eventually, Daniel used a key card against the panel. He also said not to contact you unless you contacted us first. The elevator started upward. That silenced me. When the doors opened, Adrian was standing by the windows with his sleeves rolled to his forearms, reading something on a tablet. He looked up. Surprise crossed his face before control replaced it. "Claire." Ryan was at my apartment building. Adrian became completely still. "Are you all right?" "Yes." "Did he touch you?" "No." "He talked." "I left." Adrian nodded once. "Good." No questions about why I had ignored his warning. No satisfaction. Somehow I had prepared myself for both. He admitted putting the drive in my bag. Adrian set the tablet down. "What else?" He said nobody would search me. My voice tightened despite my effort to keep it steady. He used me because I looked harmless. Adrian's expression cooled, but his voice stayed level. That was his mistake. What? Because harmless and powerless are not the same thing. I stared at him. I had spent 6 months trying to explain that distinction to Ryan. Adrian understood it in one sentence. Daniel entered behind me. "We found Evan." Adrian looked over. "Where?" He checked into a motel near O'Hare under another name. He sent an email to Hartwell's legal department 20 minutes ago. "What kind of email?" I asked. Daniel hesitated. "A confession." My breath caught. Evan had kept copies of vendor invoices, access logs, and messages connecting Ryan to the stolen files. He wanted immunity from Hartwell in exchange for everything he knew. Suddenly, we had more than suspicion. We had a trail. "Send copies to Hartwell's attorney," I said. Adrian looked at me. "And the police." Daniel waited. "Not for Adrian. For me." That small detail mattered. "Do it," I said. Daniel nodded and left. Adrian leaned against the edge of the table. "You came here for help. Do not sound so pleased." "I'm not pleased." "You look pleased." "This is my concerned face." I almost laughed. Almost. Then I remembered why I was there. "I came because I need help, Adrian. That does not mean you get to take over." "Understood." "No people outside my apartment without telling me." "Agreed." "No investigating my friends. Unless you ask." "And no making decisions because you think you know what is best for me." Adrian was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. "Agreed." It was almost too easy. "That is it. You seem disappointed." I expected an argument. "You already won it yesterday." Before I could answer, my phone rang. "Ryan." I looked at the screen. Adrian saw the name, but made no move toward me. "What do you want to do?" he asked. There was again. Not what should happen. Not what he would do. What did I want? I answered and put the call on speaker. "Claire," Ryan said quickly. "Evan is trying to blame everything on me. Then tell that to the police." Silence. "You went to Moretti. I made a choice. You do not know what you are doing." For once, the words did not make me doubt myself. "Actually, Ryan, I finally do." His voice sharpened. "Come downstairs. We can fix this." Adrian remained 10 feet away, silent, waiting. I looked at him, then at the elevator behind me. "No," Ryan exhaled. "Claire, I already answered you. I ended the call." Adrian's eyes stayed on mine. "What now?" he asked. I looked toward the city lights beyond the glass and felt something inside me settle into place. Now we make sure he has to listen. By 9 the next morning, I was sitting in a conference room at Hartwell Interiors with a detective, our company attorney, and a cup of coffee I had forgotten to drink. Adrian was not there. That had been my decision. More importantly, he had respected it. Daniel had delivered copies of Evan's records to Hartwell's attorney before sunrise, and the original storage device had been turned over through the proper channels. The evidence was painfully ordinary. Emails, access records, vendor invoices, security timestamps. Nothing dramatic. Just hundreds of small choices that formed a truth Ryan could no longer explain away. Evan had admitted giving Ryan access to restricted project files in exchange for money. Ryan had used my missing badge to enter Hartwell after hours, then hidden the storage device in my bag when he realized people were asking questions. My life had been turned upside down because he believed I would never notice. Because he believed I was convenient. At 10:23, my phone vibrated. "Ryan." I stared at his name until the detective across from me quietly asked, "Do you want to answer?" That question again. "Do you want to?" I nodded and placed the call on speaker. "Claire, please do not hang up." Ryan sounded exhausted. "I know you talked to Hartwell." "I did." "Evan is lying." "Then you can explain that to the investigators. You are making this bigger than it needs to be." I closed my eyes. 6 months ago, that sentence would have worked. It would have made me question whether I was overreacting, whether I was being unfair, whether his choices were somehow my responsibility. Not anymore. "You used my badge." Silence. "You used my work. You put something in my bag without telling me. Then you followed me because you needed it back. I was trying to fix things. For yourself." He exhaled sharply. "Moretti has gotten into your head." I looked through the conference room window at the Chicago skyline. "No, Ryan. Adrian asked me what I wanted. You kept telling me what I should want." Another silence. Then Ryan's voice softened into the tone I knew too well. "Come downstairs. Let us talk face to face." The detective glanced toward the window. I followed his gaze. Ryan stood across the street beside the entrance to a coffee shop. He had actually come to Hartwell. My heartbeat accelerated, but I did not feel trapped. Not this time. "Stay there," I told him. "Claire, just come outside." "No." I ended the call. Minutes later, 2 officers approached Ryan on the sidewalk. There was no chaos. No dramatic confrontation. They simply spoke with him while another investigator arrived. Ryan looked toward the building and saw me behind a glass. He raised one hand as if asking me to come down. I stayed where I was. Then the elevator behind me chimed. I turned. Adrian stepped out with Daniel, but stopped when he saw the conference room full of people. He did not enter. He did not take control. He waited in the hallway. I walked toward him. "You came. Daniel told me Ryan was here. I thought we agreed you would not make decisions for me." "We did." Adrian glanced through the window toward the street. "That is why I'm standing here." Ryan was still looking up from below. For a second, our eyes met across 12 floors of glass. Adrian moved half a step forward, then stopped himself. He looked at me instead. "What do you want?" I understood then how much that question had changed since the first night. Back then, I had whispered my answer because I was afraid. Now I do not need anyone to speak for me. I want to understand that no means no. Adrian nodded. Nothing more. Ryan lifted his phone and called again. I declined it. He called twice more. I declined both. Finally, Adrian looked through the glass at him. Ryan's attention shifted from me to Adrian. Adrian did not threaten him. He did not gesture. He simply stood beside me, calm and silent, while the investigators continued their work downstairs. Then he said the one thing Ryan had refused to understand for 6 months. She already answered you. And for the first time, Ryan had no choice but to listen. 3 months later, I walked into the Blackstone Grand at 11:47 at night. I had not planned the time. At least, that was what I told myself. Chicago was settling into winter, and the cold outside had turned every breath into a small white cloud. Inside, the lobby looked exactly as I remembered it. Brass fixtures, polished marble, warm golden light. But I was different. Hartwell had survived the investigation. Evan cooperated fully, and the records he provided helped untangle everything that had happened. Ryan was no longer part of my life. There were official boundaries now, documented and enforceable, but the most important boundary was the one I had finally learned to believe in myself. No did not require an explanation. No did not become maybe because someone refused to accept it. And safety did not have to mean surrendering control. I crossed the lobby slowly. Nobody was chasing me. My phone was silent inside my purse. My shoes were dry. I almost laughed when I realized how strange, normal breathing felt in this place. The elevator chimed. The doors opened. Adrian stood inside. Alone. Dark overcoat. Charcoal suit. Gray eyes that widened slightly when he saw me. For once, Adrian Moretti looked genuinely surprised. Claire. Adrian. He glanced behind me toward the lobby. Running from someone? No. His eyes returned to mine. Wrong elevator? I smiled. Not exactly. He stepped aside, leaving the doorway completely open. That small movement told me more than any dramatic declaration could have. 3 months earlier, I had entered this elevator because I needed a door closed behind me. Tonight, Adrian was making sure I knew it could remain open. 47, he asked. Are you inviting me upstairs? I'm asking which floor you want. There it was. The question beneath every question he had asked me since the night we met. What do you want? I stepped inside. 47. Adrian pressed the button. The doors closed, and the elevator began to rise. For several floors, neither of us spoke. It was not uncomfortable. Adrian had always understood silence better than most people understood conversation. Daniel said Hartwell offered you the senior project manager position, he finally said. Daniel talks too much. Daniel barely talks. Then you ask too many questions. That is possible. I looked at our reflections in the mirrored wall. I accepted it. Adrian smiled. Not the almost smile I had seen before. A real one. Quiet. Warm. Congratulations. Thank you. You earned it. Those 3 words affected me more than I expected. Not because I needed his approval. Because he understood I did not. The elevator passed 30. And you? I asked. What about me? Have you learned to stop putting security outside people's apartments without permission? I have made significant progress. I laughed. The sound surprised both of us. That is not an answer. Yes. I learned. Good. 40. 41. 42. Adrian's expression grew more serious. Claire, you do not owe me anything because I helped you. I know. I need you to know that. I turned toward him. Edo. He nodded once. There was something almost vulnerable in the way he looked away. The man people feared had spent 3 months giving me distance because I had asked for it. Maybe that was when I finally understood him. Power had never impressed me. Restraint did. The elevator chimed. 47. The doors opened onto the same quiet hallway where I had once been terrified to take a single step. Adrian waited. He would not assume. He would not decide. So I stepped out first. Then I turned back. The first time I got into this elevator, it was an accident. Adrian remained inside, watching me. And this time, I held out my hand. This time, I chose it. He looked at my hand for a moment before taking it gently and stepping onto the floor beside me. That was when I finally understood what being saved had meant for me. It was never finding a man powerful enough to fight every battle in my place. It was finding the courage to reclaim my own choices and meeting someone strong enough to respect them.